steady and true, choosing each other.
Hello, thank you for joining me today on Love in Motion. I want to introduce you all today to Rochel Lewis and George DeMarcus Lewis. I know typically you're supposed to say the man's name first, but since Rochel is my little sister, her name is going to go first. I'm glad that you all are my first interviewees, since I am kind of part of your story. So I thank you for that piece as well. So do you have any questions before we get started? And if not, we'll go right into me asking the questions. Okay. So the way we'll do it, I'll ask you a question. Some of the questions can just be one of you answering, and some of the questions will require a response from each of you. And you'll be able to tell that based on the question. So the first question is, tell me how you two met.
So we each tell a different story.
Okay, well then we'll get an answer from each of you. Then you start with your story, and then we'll get his unabridged version.
So I met George my senior year in high school. He was a junior, and I was the aide in his English class. And so I had heard about him before I actually knew who he was. One of my friends used to talk about him all the time. And so when I finally met him, it was kind of like talking to somebody I already knew. But he used to ask me to do favors for him in class, like give him a grade that he didn't deserve, or just different things. And then he kept telling me I was going to be his wife one day.
Oh my God. Okay.
At that point, I was like, boy, please. Cause I didn't like him like that. I liked him as a friend, but nothing more. And that's how we met at South Garland in his junior English class. But he tells a different story, so I'm gonna let him tell his story.
So let's hear your story, because Rochel has already answered the second question, which was, what was your first impression of each other? So when you give your version of how you met, go ahead and roll into your first impression.
All right. So my compelling story is we met when I was 5 years old at Hill Avenue Baptist Church in Dallas, because my grandmother, my dad's mom, I spent a lot of time with her, and she was a member of the same church that her family was members of, was Hill Avenue. So I always tell her our paths cross. And I actually found a picture of me and my grandmother standing outside of that church. I said, see, this is where we first met. First impressions, because I was 5 years old, I can't really say I had a first impression. So I don't really know. However, my second impression, when I met her again at South Garland High School, believe it or not, I felt like she was somebody special. I had this certain feeling for her, even though I would tell her she was going to be my wife. But it was a little bit different. It wasn't like that normal high school crush infatuation type of deal, because we actually sometimes would conversate about things that normal friends just talk about, your parents, where you're from, what you do, what you like, stuff like that, So I would have to say at that point, I mean, she was still breathtaking, but, that was a second impression. So, hey, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with George on that.
Really?
Because he did meet you when he was 5. But
all that,
I know you don't recall it, but still, it's still a meeting. But on the second hand, we talking about real meetings, because at 5, you even said it yourself. You do not, neither one of y'all remember anything. But I get it. I met my first love, which is going to come in my story later on. I met my first love when I was 5, and how I remember that exact day, I don't know, but I do. So that's why I kind of side with both of you.
Yeah.
But so, Rochel, this is going to be for you, because George has already kind of answered that. When did you realize that relationship was more than just casual?
So through the years, of course, he left South Garland, and we didn't see each other for some years. Actually, I was at a Battle of the Bands with some of my friends, and I ran into his mom, and she was like, "Oh, George played for Carter and da 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 da." And so, just talking about that, it brought him back to my remembrance. Oh, okay, yeah. So
I remember that little old dude, and he was trying to get me to help him cheat in class.
So a couple of years later, his mom actually joined my dad's church. And so that's what brought us back together. And we used to just sit on the phone and talk all night and watching Maury Povich and asking, do you think that's the daddy? Do you think? And so I don't know. At that point, I started to see him like in a different light, like remembering him saying, this could be my wife, and thinking, hey, I actually have feelings for this dude, and he could possibly be my husband.
I remember those days.
Yeah. So yeah, so I guess it was about that time my feelings started to change for him, more than just being my friend to actually being someone I could spend the rest of my life with. And it was just him, just being him, silly.
Yeah.
Joking, but then also just saying, hey, this is a good dude. He has, has so many things he wanted to do with his life. He wasn't like some of the guys my age that was like, they want to rap, or they still holding on to a rap dream, or they still holding on to, I want to be in the NBA. This dude actually had goals, things, realistic things that he wanted to do with himself.
So what almost, if anything, once you realize you had feelings, George's feelings were already there, so we're not going to even talk about his feelings. So what happened? Was there anything that ever happened at any moment that made you think that this might not actually happen, even though we're kind of saying we have feelings for each other? Was there any moment that this relationship almost didn't happen? And if not, then, we'll move on to the next thing. But
so to be honest, George was actually in the process of getting a divorce when we, became reacquainted with each other. And so just some crazy things, like typical, no, I won't say
typical, I'm getting out of this relationship drama.
Yes, that type of stuff. So that was really one of the things that made me start to think, oh, is this gonna happen? Is this what I want to deal with? And
so, George, did you ever feel like that? I know how Rochel felt, but did you ever feel like maybe this is not meant to be because I got all this other baggage over here?
I'd have to say yes and no. So one of the things that happened, of course, when my mom joined Rochel's dad's church, I was still at Fort Jackson. I was in the Army, and my mom would write, but then sometimes she'd call and she'd be like, you never guess what church I joined, what church I've been visiting. And so, at that time, I'm kind of like Rochel, it brought her back to my mind. But I was one of those guys because I felt like I knew what I wanted in life. I made a lot of decisions trying to force things, relationships, stuff like that. I was like, this is the life I'm going to have. When I get back home, I'm going to have this house, this white picket fence. I'm going to do this. I'm doing. And so I made
5 kids and a dog.
Yeah. So I made some decisions at a young age that ended up affecting what God really had for me. And that's kind of what she's speaking on. But because of my beliefs, my moral beliefs, my religious background, I took a time to where I was, and two, again, when you have younger friends that have different visions from you, they think they're giving you good advice, but they're giving you bad advice. So I'm like, okay, let me make sure I close this book before I open another book. Because again, with our feelings, it wasn't something that we planned. We were actually just there for each other during a hard time, being friends. And from there, we kind of realized, whoa, you or the person, because it had nothing to do with anything physical. It was just all conversation and hanging out. Just like, again, just two people hanging out. We hung out like we had always done, but we didn't realize something bigger was building. So at that point, it was kind of one of those for me. Let me make sure I close this book before I open another book, because it can create a lot of drama. You know, I'm a young man trying to reach some goals, but again, haven't made decisions that I thought was what was best for me. I was trying to paint the American dream, if you will, not realizing that I need a little bit more patience and just waiting on the right person at the right time.